Now, I don't know about you, but these right here are some incredible looking baby back ribs, and you'll never believe that I made them right over there in my oven. I'm gonna show you the easiest and simplest way to come out with perfect ribs every single time. Now let's get started. Now this rib recipe is super simple. Get yourself a rack of ribs. You even get two if you've got more mouths to feed. Get yourself a knife. Anytime we get a rack of ribs, I always look for this stuff. I call them hangers. I'm gonna cut that off, square off the ribs. Got a little bit here. I'm gonna check the other side, and they look pretty good. And another thing that I will do is I'll check to see about thickness. Sometimes that last rib or so just isn't gonna cut it. Today, these actually look pretty good. I am gonna square this side off just a little bit better. Now the next thing that we need to do is remove the membrane. Now this is a controversial subject. If you're doing it on a smoker, if you're doing it in your oven, it doesn't matter. You can take it off, you can leave it on. Now I personally, with pork ribs, always take the membrane off. And I'm gonna show you a very simple way to do it. Get yourself a butter knife. What you're gonna wanna do is find one of the bones, preferably at the end or in the middle, somewhere where it's nice and solid, you don't see it ripped. And you wanna take your butter knife and slide it in between the bone and the membrane. Just like so. And you're gonna use this and just apply a little bit of leverage and try and hold the bone back. And you just wanna get it to start to pull away like we're doing here. Then get yourself a paper towel and use that paper towel to grab a hold of the membrane right where you peeled it up. Now we're using the paper towel just because we can get a little bit more grip. Make your way across the rack of ribs first. You want to get it completely removed all the way across, just like so. See, my fingers are sticking out the other side. And we're just going to pull up. The next step, get yourself more paper towel, and we're going to pat dry these ribs off. We want to remove any excess purge. You can see the ribs are kind of shiny, and we are just removing any of that. Now, some of you might say, well, that's how I get the rub to stick. Well, we're gonna be using a binder today, so we wanna remove any of this excess purge or moisture that was used in the packaging. I'm not sure what they're using, and I'd like to remove as much of it off my food as possible. I'm gonna grab my olive oil, and that is what we're gonna be using as a binder. I'm gonna pour a little bit of that olive oil into my glove. We don't need to go crazy. We just wanna get a little sheen or a little shine on these ribs. Now, people will use mustard. I've seen all kinds of things for binders. Now with ribs, because we're cooking these what we would consider kind of hot and fast, I like to use olive oil because it helps give a nice finish to the ribs. We're going to apply to both sides. Get a little bit more olive oil in my glove here. We're going to do the same thing. Just rub that oil in. That way we're coating all the surfaces. Now that we've got the olive oil applied as a binder, today I'm going to be using one of my rubs that I've been working on. This is something that should go great with these ribs. I'll put the recipe down in the description, but if you're not into making your own rubs, don't want all those raw ingredients laying around, the Bearded Butcher's Hollywood Blend is one of my favorite rib rubs there is. Get yourself some of this. I'll also put a link down in the description for that. And we're just going to put a nice generous coat across the back. Like to get it along the bones as well. Coat all surfaces. Now before I flip these over, I'm gonna take the back side of my hand that doesn't have any olive oil on it, and I'm just gonna use that to kind of pat the rub down in. It'll help stick when we flip it over. And we're gonna do the same to this side, using my homemade rub. And we're gonna get a nice, even coat. Now, once again, take the back side of your glove and pat that rub into the ribs. Now that we got the rub patted in, it is time to get them in the oven. We're gonna get this preheated to 350 degrees, and we're gonna let these ribs sit here and sweat. Now it's just gonna take about 5 to 10 minutes for that oven to get hot, and in that period, some moisture is going to come from these ribs, and you're gonna get a wet looking surface. That is absolutely fine. That's actually what we're looking for. You can see that the ribs have started to sweat. I took a nice big cookie sheet, lined it with foil. We're gonna lay these down on here nicely. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees. It is time to get the ribs in. Let's go ahead and do so. We're gonna place it about center height in terms of the racks in the oven. We're gonna get this thing closed. Now, for these ribs, they typically take about 2 hours to cook, but this is one of the most important things. We're actually gonna set the timer to 1 hour and 40 minutes. The reason why is because your oven and my oven might not run at the same temperature when we've got them set to 350 degrees, meaning that my ribs might still be chewy and yours look like a napalm strike went off. So in order to avoid that, we're gonna set it at 140, knowing that it's probably gonna take about 2 hours. We're gonna come in at the hour and 40 mark. We're gonna check them. I'm gonna show you a special trick on how to check for tenderness and doneness on ribs. We'll do that at the hour and 40 mark. And then I'm gonna show you how to finish them off. Now it's time to get your side dishes started or whatever else you're gonna be having with these ribs, because we're gonna have at least an hour and 40 minutes. All right, the hour and 40 minutes is up and it is time to give these a test. Now, what we're looking for here is doneness, and we judge doneness on ribs based off of tenderness. So we're gonna be using a toothpick. Get yourself a toothpick or something sharp and fine like a toothpick. And you're gonna get in here to the rack of ribs, and you want to go in between the bones like so. And you wanna feel, if you feel any kind of resistance, then they're not done. And in this case, these are not ready yet. So I'm gonna go ahead, I can see that the ribs aren't burning or anything like that. We're gonna go ahead, add the 20 minutes, we're gonna get them at that 2 hour mark, and that's when we're gonna check them again. So, timer, 20 minutes, give it a start. The timer just went off and we're at 2 hours now. We're gonna check it again with our toothpick. Now we're looking for something that feels just like we're putting this toothpick into butter or peanut butter. We want it nice and soft and smooth. Now if they're just a tad behind, we're actually gonna kick the temperature up anyways, but let's check these first. Oh yeah, they're getting nice and tender. Yeah, not a lot of resistance there. Now, at this point, we are just about done. The tenderness is just about achieved, but we want to get a nice finish on those ribs. So we're going to kick the oven up to 450 degrees. We're going to set it there for 10 minutes. This is going to prepare it and get a nice finish before we put sauce on it. Now, after 2 hours at 350 and 10 minutes at 450, look at those ribs. We've got nice pullback on the bones. We got a nice surface. You can see there, we're starting to get a little bit of char, and that's exactly what we're looking for with these baby back ribs. Now that we've gotten the ribs to this point, that's 2 hours at 350 and 10 minutes at 450. It is time to get these sauced up. First, I want to remove these from the foil. Now, the purpose of the foil is so that we can make easy cleanup. We've got a nice clean pan underneath this now, and we're gonna reline it with foil. I like this Reynolds heavy duty wide. It's great for barbecue. Now we're gonna give these ribs a little bit of sauce. Today I'm gonna be using my Hey Grill Hey Everything barbecue sauce. I like this one because it's a very good balanced sauce. It's not overly sweet, it's not overly bold, it's just perfect. Got my silicone brush here. We're gonna drizzle this over the top. And we'll get these nice and sauced up. And the reason why I'm saucing them here and not on the cookie sheet is because I will be putting those back into the oven to glaze or to caramelize. And if I sauce it on there, I'm probably gonna get a little bit too much excess, which will burn on the foil in that time. They're sauced up nicely. It is back in the oven on this cookie sheet with fresh foil for about 3 to 5 minutes. The oven is still at 450 degrees. Now look at this. Those are some beautiful ribs. These are perfect. They're not burnt. They got great color. They got a great finish. When we put these into caramelize at 450 degrees for that 3 to 5 minutes, we're looking for that sauce to start to bubble, and it did just that, and it thickens up, and it adheres to the surface, and it looks beautiful, just like this. Now, all of this work, every single bit of it, means absolutely nothing until we give it a try. So, the easiest way to cut these is to flip them over. When you look from the back side, you can see what directions the bones run. And we're just gonna cut right in between the bones. Now, these are not fall off the bone ribs. In fact, what people consider fall off the bone ribs are typically overcooked. Now, don't get me wrong, I love super tender ribs, but you're supposed to be able to cut them like this. Is that not a delicious looking rib? Now, when it comes to ribs, we want that good, clean, tender bite. We shouldn't have to do any serious tearing, and it shouldn't just fall off the bone. Now, these still hold intact, but let's see how that bite is. Those are some seriously delicious ribs. They're tender, they're still nice and juicy, which people think you gotta do them low and slow. You don't. It's all about rendering the fat down and not burning it. That's exactly what we did today. That seasoning, I can taste that seasoning. I can get that texture that was formed from that. It has some coarse black pepper and things in that, so you do kind of get a little bit of that bark. And then that sauce paired extremely well with it. When it's raining outside, when it's snowing outside, and you just don't have the nerve to go out and cook, or you don't have a smoker or a grill, and you don't have any other option but to run it in your oven. Now, this recipe right here with these super delicious and simple baby back ribs in the oven, this will get it done all day, every day. I've said it once, I've said it again. I've got videos with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, and I have a video with nearly 1 million views using a very similar method. Cooking ribs in the oven can be done simply and delicious. And if you want more simple and delicious barbecue, then I suggest you check out this video right here.